Hello people, this is Dr. Wang here. In this video clip, I'm going to show you how to organize your portfolio, and we will cover the variance covariance matrix in order to calculate the portfolio standard deviation. So first of all, let's begin with something pretty simple. Right here, you're looking at two stocks, stock A and stock B, and you have several years of their returns, and let's say these returns are a sample of the population. So that basically means when you are calculating standard deviation, you should treat them as a sample, not the whole population of all the returns, and that's going to require some technique. Alright, so the first thing you are going to do is to get the average of all the returns. It's a pretty normal. Each return is treated equally, so the average will be the expected return. Okay, to get the standard deviation, it's also pretty easy. So you just use STDEV. Alright, that's nice and simple. Okay. So correlation is the way we measure how closely they are related to each other. In Excel, you're going to use a correl function. You're going to select all the returns for A and then all the returns for B. Then you see this correlation is negative 0.97. So they are pretty much negatively correlated. So that means when A is doing well, B is not, and when B is doing well, A is not. Okay, and sometimes they go together, but in many cases they don't. All right, so the next thing you're gonna do is to calculate the covariance. Okay, there are several ways to calculate the covariance. One way is to get the correlation multiplied by the standard deviation of each. Okay, and another way is to use a covariance function, and now you need to make a selection. Do you select S or P? P stands for population and S stands for sample. So let's go with the sample. Alright, and then I'm going to select A column and B's column. Alright, I got the same result. Okay, another way to get a covariance is actually a little harder. You will need to get to the core concept of a covariance. So when we're calculating the standard deviation, we basically need to get the squared deviation and then use the probability, just like what you did in class exercise 2. But right here, I just want you to get the deviation for A, and you need to do them separately, and then deviation for B. Okay? Alright, so how to get deviation? You're going to use each return minus the expected. Okay, and then you drag it down, drag it to the right. Okay, well, if you drag it to the right, you know this is you're using a different return. So what I did wrong here is when I lock it correctly, I should lock the row. I need to lock this 7th row, B7, but I should not lock the column. So when I drag it down, it's the same. And when I drag it to the right, you will see the column also shift. So the row is fixed at the 7th row, but the column shifted from B to C. Alright, and then the next thing you're going to do is to get the covariance. Okay, the covariance will be the deviation for A multiplied by the deviation for B. So you're going to use the product function. Okay, sum of product function. Alright, so it's going to be sum of A's deviation multiplied by B's deviation. You know, since this calculation involves columns of data, so you're gonna hit Control Shift Enter, but not yet. You will need to divide the whole thing by n-1. N is the number of all the returns here, the sample size, and you can see you have 5 returns. You can just put 5, or if you want to do it in a fancy way, just in case you have many returns, you can use count. Okay, count basically is giving you number 5, the 5 returns. All right, and then you need to use n-1. Okay, count will give you number 5 as output. -1, it will give you 4 as output. And don't forget, you should use Control Shift Enter to finish this, and you get the same result. Okay, so previously in the class practice 2, you were asked to calculate the standard deviation, and you were using this method for variance. Okay, you are using this calculation for variance, and the variance was the deviation of A, actually squared deviation. You can treat it as deviation of A times deviation of a B. So if I calculate the variance for A, you don't need to do this. Variance for A, it is the sum of product deviation of A times itself, and then you have 5 product. You add them up, and you gotta take the average, and this time you're gonna use 5 minus 1. You have 5 returns minus 1 because you have a sample. If this 5 years is the entire population, you don't do the -1 technique. If this is 5 returns is just a sample of the whole population, then you have to -1. Do -1, and that's just the statistics. All right, so that's how you get variance for A. You can also do variance for B. Okay, so just to drag it all the way to the right, so you can see the dragging works. I have calculated the variance for both. All right, and how do you get a standard deviation? Standard deviation would be the square root of the variance. All right, so I just calculated the variance, and then I use that. And the standard deviation can be expressed in percentage. As you can see, I got the same answer for standard deviation. All right, so that means the Excel function stdev works, or I can use the square root of variance. And how I use the variance, I use the sum of squared, and this time I don't need the probabilities because each return has the same probability, or they are weighted the same. It's not like a bad economy, good economy, normal economy with 20% probability, but in this time series data, each return is treated equally with equal probability. So that's why I need to take an average. And when I take an average, I need to be careful when calculating the variance or covariance, because the denominator should be n-1 if I'm using the sample, and if I'm using the whole population, the denominator should be n.